Ys is an action RPG series from developer Nihon Falcom that has been around for decades. Many games from this series are regarded as classics, with its music considered to be some of the finest in the entire video game industry. Personally, I've only played bits and pieces of the series, but I absolutely love what I've seen so far. I completed Origins forever ago, and Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana was one of the first games I bought when I got my Switch. And it's an absolute masterpiece. In my eyes, it is the magnum opus of the Ys series and everything it is known for, that being action RPGs of unparalleled quality. Back in the day, PSP owners got 3 exclusive, fantastic games with unique spine art that made them stand out. Vita owners would later get 2 exclusives alongside a port of Origins. For a while, Ys games held a special place in the hearts of those that stuck to Sony's portables over Nintendo's. But when Sony killed off their handheld line, Ys games started popping up elsewhere. While that's great for preservation's sake, it leaves these releases feeling like a testament to a bygone era. Oh, hold on, it looks like I missed one. The spine on this one doesn't match the others, which causes it to stick out when placed next to them. Almost like a warning. Ys 6, the Ark of Napishtim, came out in North America on February 28, 2006. It was the first entry in the series to come to PSP, and is easily one of the most disappointing titles for the console. Not because Ark of Napishtim is a bad game, but because the PSP version is a lazy port of a great one. Ys games are known for great technical performance and slick gameplay to match, and this port just does all of that so dirty. So badly, in fact, that I'm not actually going to do a review of the full game like normal. Instead, we're going to focus on why you should play it elsewhere. This game originally came out on Windows in late 2003. Then about 2 months later, Konami announced they had the worldwide console publishing rights to the game, meaning they're going to release it on different systems in various countries. At the time, this was a pretty big deal, as it was the first entry to be released in North America since the third game came out on the Super Nintendo. On February 22nd, 2005, a PlayStation 2 version was released in North America. Oddly enough, this is before the Japanese version came out, which you don't see too often. It changes and adds a handful of things from the PC original. It ends up with a Metacritic score of 72. A year later, the PSP version comes out in North America. It's much closer to the original PC release, but it is rough. It ends up with a Metacritic score of 64 and garners far less positive reviews. After this, we don't hear anything about the Ys series in the US until Xseed secured the rights to bring over 6 Falcom PSP games in mid-2010. For whatever reason, Konami didn't secure the console rights for future Ys titles. I'm gonna skip over some stuff here because we don't need to get into the whole Trails in the Sky thing today, but basically over the next few years, Xseed released the Ys Spine trilogy on PSP. And in 2015, they released a newly translated English version of Ark of Napishtim's Windows release, making the game widely available in the Western world. Anyways, that Windows release is available on Steam, so I was able to do a full playthrough on my Steam Deck. We're going to use that version as a point of reference so I can show you how bad and borderline unplayable the PSP port is. But before we talk about that, I want to clarify a few things about the Konami versions. Both of these use the same translation and are also censored, so blood and gore is removed. But other than those things, they have wild changes between the two of them. If it matters to you, the English PC release uses a translation made by Xseed, so I feel like some people will go with that version solely based off of that. Oh yeah, one more thing. The PSP version does have some bad load times if you're playing off the disc, but like usual, they are circumvented if you're playing a digital file. Just wanted to make sure I got that in there before I forgot. Anyways, let's take a look at the PlayStation 2 version.
Good stuff! Is that him? So you're the red-haired adult. The name's Ladakh. So how about it? Let's discover the edge of the world together. Huh?
What the hell was that?
Yeah, the PlayStation 2 version replaces all of the anime cutscenes with these 3D animated ones. They don't look great, and they also include this version's signature voice acting, which is also not great.
So, it's true. They don't have tails. His ears are really small, too. And his hair, it's almost like a flame.
To be fair though, the PlayStation 2 port is decent, it's just got some bad additions that are easy to make fun of. I do like the 3D models, and I think it feels more natural with the movement than the sprites of the original. They also change based on what armor set Adol has currently equipped. There's this cheat menu that lets you do a variety of things, including playing a version that uses the original anime cutscenes, and you are able to turn off the voice acting if you prefer that, but to me, if you're doing that, it makes the additions unique to this version pretty pointless. I would much rather they just include good things people enjoy rather than things they would like to shut off. I'll give it points for having some unique and interesting content and being highly customizable, but I still prefer the PC version. Out of all three though, I do think it's a close second, and if you already own it, I think it'd make for a fine playthrough. That leaves the PSP version in last place, which is odd, because it has the most playable content out of the three. Hey, I've got a quick correction here. So, I missed it initially, but there's actually some more content that is added to the PS2 version. These are called Alma Trials. Basically, they amount to extra areas you can play through during the campaign at specific points. But they're not like a menu option, like they're not like a mode, they're just extra content during the campaign, so I didn't see them when I checked out that version. You access them by selecting the I think it's called the Rita feather. It's the item used to warp or leave dungeons, and there's like an option to warp to the Alma Trials, so there's that. And then the PC version has an extra mode that's not in any of the others called Catastrophe Mode. And you can both play the boss rush / time attacks with that, as well as the normal campaign. What I understood from this is that it basically takes away your quick use item slot. So I think the only way you can use items is through the start menu, which means that during boss fights, you have no way to heal whatsoever. So that one's kind of interesting because you can play that normally through the campaign, and like it's an overlay that happens on top of the difficulty. So if you really wanted to hate yourself, you could do Nightmare Catastrophe Mode. Not my kind of thing, but basically with all of this new information, all three of the versions are basically equal in terms of content, but for reasons I'm about to show you, the PSP version is not worth playing through seriously. So what's wrong with it? So, this is a tough one. The very first time I played this, I thought it had a lot of slowdown and tons of latency, but that's not really the issue. I think the game is just optimized in a weird way, and because of that, it doesn't match up to the quality of other Ys games. For comparison, here's what the Steam version of Ark of Napishtim looks like. Obviously, the PSP port looks worse, but it's on weaker hardware. That's to be expected. But is it really though? Because there's another Ys game on PSP that has a lot in common with it. Let's take a look at that one. See what I mean? Ark of Napishtim's PSP port can't even hold a candle to the other Ys games on the same system, let alone its own versions. Here's the thing though, it's not terrible. It's still possible to play through this, and even 100% it, but why the hell would you ever want to? Yeah, it's playable, but it's the way they accomplish that ruins it. Let me explain. I know the game looks like crap in comparison. I'm not talking about the graphics right now, more so the way everything moves on the screen. This port of the game typically runs at 30 FPS, but I noticed some screens run much lower. It appears they capped the frame rate at 30 across the board for this port, and then lowered it on a screen-by-screen basis so the game feel is consistent. Yeah, big surprise. Despite how choppy this looks, it still feels okay while you play it. I did see some people on Reddit say that overclocking the PSP will result in the game running better, but sadly that's not the case. I downloaded a plugin called PSP HUD that lets me both see frame rates and control the CPU clock speed on the fly. And no, there's no change in performance, even on screens that run sub 30 FPS. I understand why people would think this, but I actually don't know of any PSP games that benefit from overclocking the CPU, outside of games that support it officially like Birth by Sleep. But now that I have this thing, I'm going to test it on every single game I review from here on out. Shout out to PSP Cult and Pixel Overflow for making me aware of this plugin. Anyways, the point is it feels right while playing, but it looks gross. It's not at the same bar of quality when it comes to other Ys games. And when it comes to this version being of lesser quality, that's only the tip of the iceberg. So a lot of PSP games compress their audio to use up less disk space. Larger disk capacities were more expensive, so this makes sense. This practice wasn't unheard of back during this era, as there's quite a few PlayStation 2 titles that do the same thing. A pretty infamous example is Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. All of the game's different battle songs are compressed to save on space. But I've always noticed some PSP games compress it to the point where it doesn't sound good, which is the case with this game. Ys games are well known for having fantastic music, so to compress it down like this feels like an insult. However, good music is still good music, even if the audio quality isn't the best. But it's not the music tracks that are the issue, it's the sound effects. They're all completely unchanged from the PC original, but the problem is, some of them were just bad in the first place. One of the loops used for walking on grassy terrain has this really obnoxious sound at the end of it that's louder than the rest of the clip. It's not awful on PC, but the compression used in the PSP version makes it sound crunchy and rather ear-grating. A seemingly minor thing, but unfortunately this terrain type is used a lot throughout this game, especially in the first half, so it gets annoying quickly. Also, the graphics have been significantly downgraded. So much of it is just a mess now, and I know that PSP is capable of much better. And yeah, I know, no shit, but allow me to show you why I'm making a point of this. What the hell is that? There's just this amorphous blob on the table here in this scene. Oh, it's Adol's armor. Yeah, nice texture filtering. You guys should have kept that for the rest of the game. This is just egregious. You literally can't tell what this is unless you've played one of the other versions. I don't think your 2D sprite-based graphics need to look like the dubious food, if you know what I mean. The funny thing is, despite all of that, the PSP version actually has quite a bit going on. It's the only version that includes a character database / bestiary. I have a particular fondness for games that include these, and this one's pretty decent. It gives stats for all the monsters and bosses, which is great for filling out wiki information, and there's little descriptions for everyone. There's also a media player where you can watch the anime cutscenes, listen to the soundtrack, and even make custom playlists. They even included the PlayStation 2 opening, as well as a trailer that played at E3. That's actually pretty cool. So why the hell is the menu navigation like this? A mouse cursor. Here. Why? This isn't a thing anywhere else in the game. Somebody also needs to open their settings and bump the cursor speed up because Jesus is this slow. Oh wait, I'm sorry. That's not actually why. Of course that's not why. These screens have slowdown. Yes, these menu screens have slowdown. It's like this all throughout the game in various places, but this one seems particularly ridiculous because it's not overlaid on top of gameplay. I just don't understand, and to make things even worse, it didn't have to be this way. So if you highlight Option on the main menu screen, hold down R and circle and then press right, you get this secret menu. This is a list of all the game's original cutscenes, and you can play them from here. So they literally have a standard text menu and another part of the game that functions better than the actual media player. Look, I get the presentation on the actual media player is a lot better, but I don't think the trade-off is worth it considering it runs poorly and the navigation method is so bad. They should have stuck with a list like this. So that's the bulk of what's exclusively wrong with the PSP version, but it's not really what's wrong with Ark of Napishtim in the first place. Ark of Napishtim is not a bad game by any means, but it is not perfect and does have some flaws of its own. For starters, there's a lot of permanently missable content in this game. This is my inventory from my playthrough of the PC version. As you can see, there's a lot of blank spaces. This is because I have no way to obtain these items anymore. This is due to a lot of different factors, but basically, during the story there are specific actions you have to take at specific times, otherwise you miss the window for them unless you start over. As far as I know, this isn't in a lot of these games, and it's something I really don't like. It is in Lacrimosa of Dana as well, but that game has a New Game Plus mode, so it doesn't matter because you can easily grab stuff on the second cycle. Ark of Napishtim doesn't have anything like that, so you must start over if you want to 100%. And even then, you'll want to use a guide because the timing can be pretty specific. Also, the original Japanese PC release as well as the two Konami versions don't have any form of fast travel. There's an item called the Wing of Alma in all games that lets you leave dungeons, but in the English PC release, they changed it so you can use it to warp around. That helps with the game's pacing immensely, and I've actually done a full playthrough of the PSP version before, and it was really annoying not having this. But there is one thing that's kind of major, and if you've played this game before, you know what I'm about to get into. So as you play through this game, you're going to see a lot of stuff that's just out of reach. Seems like you're going to get some type of double jump somewhere in this game. After all, other Ys entries have platforming abilities like that. Yeah, there's no double jump. So, this is called the dash jump. You have it from the beginning of the game, and as far as I know, they don't ever tell you about it anywhere. This is the one thing everybody universally agrees that Ark of Napishtim screwed up on. In the PC version, you accomplish this by tapping a direction and waiting about 1 second, and then pressing jump and attack at the same time. It's easier said than done, but on Steam Deck I can map part of it to a hotkey that makes it much easier. It's not so bad with some of the simpler challenges, but as you get further into the game, you'll see these chests that are placed far away, and you have to jump on multiple small platforms to get to. This is what kills the PSP version for me. While they did change it to pressing the direction and the buttons at the same time in the PSP version, the PSP version still has that performance issue. Some of the rooms where you're expected to do this don't perform right, making these annoying challenges even more difficult. And that makes me completely write off playing this version. Again, you could do it, but why would you ever want to? So, does this version have anything of value? Yeah, actually, the Trials mode. This is a mode exclusive to the PSP version that consists of a bunch of different minigames. I actually really like these, and there is a lot of variety here. Find the hidden object, recover the stolen goods, an escort mission, protect the townspeople, find the imposter, as well as combat and platforming challenges. These are all really good and use completely unique maps not seen in any other version of this game. My favorite one by far is Clearing the Field. There's this mini-boss during the main game called Gapsadala, that spits these seeds out that can hatch into more monsters. The idea is that you want to knock these seeds away before they hatch. In Clearing the Field, they've taken this concept of knocking away the seeds and made a game out of it. This is excellent as, just like the other minigames, it pushes all of the game's mechanics to their maximum level. These minigames are not perfect, however. Most of them tend to drag on a bit too long, and the kicker, you're still playing the PSP version, so the performance is not that great. And that makes me sad, because given everything, this would easily be the definitive version if it just ran better. And that's Ark of Napishtim on PSP. This game is a lot like Castlevania Symphony of the Night in the sense that there's no truly definitive version because each one manages to stand out with its own form of individuality. However, the PSP version is easily the least out of all of them and is a 5 out of 10. If you really want to play this, I'd play the PC release, which I would give a 7. PS2 is fine as well if that's your fancy. If you're really into this game and have played it elsewhere, I would recommend checking out the Trials in the PSP version, however. they are the one thing from this port that's worth taking a look at if you're interested. Well, actually, there's another reason you might seek this one out. I don't really talk about this a lot on the channel, but PSP games come in clear cases. In fact, I believe other than Switch, they are the only game boxes like this. Because of this, anytime you open it up, you'll see the other side of the artwork sleeve. Not a lot of PSP games do this, but some of them have actually chosen to print something on the reverse side of the artwork. So, when you open them up, there's a nice piece of art inside. Ark of Napishtim is one of these. While the game itself is not great, it is one of the nicer physical releases for PSP. I actually really like the box for this one, especially the way the back is designed. I do think they ruin it a little bit by putting this message on the inside cover where the manual goes, but other than that, it is a nice physical piece to have in your collection. But, if you're just looking for stuff to play, I wouldn't really bother grabbing this one. Besides, there's much better East games to play on PSP. Oh yeah, I forgot, there's also a smartphone version. Yeah, I think I'm good.